All right, guys, welcome to week 5 of sport administration. We're going to talk about the financial aspect of college athletics. So, a lot of things going on with the different associations, and understand that they all have a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, NCAA sits at the top of the rung and does make a substantial amount of money, but it's only for a handful of sports: football, men's basketball, and it's only really at the upper echelon institutions. The NAIA, the junior college leagues, not as much. And understand that most of these non-revenue generating sports, the reason they're not generating revenue is because, one, they don't have any kind of media rights deals, so they don't get any of that money that men's basketball gets, for instance. Also, they have high coaches' salaries that between that and travel offset any little bit of money that they make off of ticket sales. NAIA junior colleges, they're a little bit different because their money is made off enrollment. Coaches don't get paid as much money, and they make their money through getting student athletes to pay tuition. So every program in the NAIA makes money or it doesn't exist. So really the money for, and you guys should have seen this now from doing your analysis of the different conferences, but broadcasting TV money is a huge deal. Upwards of in the billions of dollars in contracts that last upwards of 25 years. And so there's been a lot of realignment from conferences for people just to be able to get into deals where they can, for instance, get a little bit of the money from the SEC network, okay, or get into a deal with ESPN. Okay, so TV broadcasting makes a huge difference. And basically, it's an arms race. It's who has the best, and everybody's trying to beat everybody else. And so the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world, they're the ones that can compete for the national champions. The smaller conferences, they're going to have a hard time. Okay, they're trying to do the same kinds of things, but they don't have the revenue coming in. So it puts them in debt, forces them to cut programs. And, during recessions, a lot of higher education institutions in period, they look to cut funding, which is a problem. And so a lot of this public funding that's cut when there's not as much taxpayer money comes in puts a lot of pressure on the lower divisions of Division I. So college athletic departments kind of fall within the organization of an institution. Even though a lot of them are completely separate from the academic aspect, it has to align somewhat with the overall institution's vision and mission. So since the NCAA is the governing body, the university presidents, they have control. So the NCAA doesn't have direct control over the institution's decisions. So they don't control alignment. They don't control media rights or media buyouts or anything like that. They don't control budgets. They're just an over-the-top umbrella organization. So kind of a theory you need to know, this revenue theory cost. They're not, college athletics and colleges in general are nonprofit. So revenue theory costs, basically, that in a nonprofit setting, expenditure increases are a direct result of increased revenue that must be spent in order to avoid a surplus. So in other words, colleges can't show a surplus at the end of the year. They have to spend that money. And understand that they're spending money because they're trying to win. And that winning creates kind of a prestige, a reputation, which brings students there other than just athletes. Sports sponsorships, again, another prominent deal. only people who really take advantage of it or get to take advantage of it are football, men's basketball. The money from this is basically used to fund all other sports, and so it leads to this question of, well, if football and men's basketball are making all this money, what happens when those programs fall on hard times and there's not that money to support other programs? And so if you look at how this thing's laid out, it's a nonprofit, so it's tax exempt. It can take charitable donations, and it's laid out where basically you have the NCAA, then you have the conferences and the athletic departments, and that's kind of how the structure lays out. And so just some ways that they get revenue: ticket sales, conference distributions from people making it to bowl games, guarantees when Georgia plays UL Monroe, they pay them to play, donations, media rights, camps, investments. These are all how, NCAA schools make money. For NAIA schools, they make money through enrollment. And so they have to look for other ways to make money. And so they have to look at how can we do things differently in order to generate money. And that's what your discussion question is going to ask you this week. From an expenses standpoint, they have to pay for their scholarships. They have to pay those guarantees for those smaller teams to come. They have astronomical coaching salaries and travel, recruiting. They spend a lot of money on medical care for their athletes and for marketing. And their facilities are unbelievably nice, and so they cost a lot of money to keep up to date. And so they have to put out a statement of financial position, which basically shows how they're a nonprofit. It has to show their assets, their liability, their funds. They have to demonstrate nonprofit revenue for over a period of time of 1 year. And then they have to provide how they're using cash during that specific amount of time. And so budgets become really, really important. They help make better decisions. They show where the institution should put its priorities, where they're having shortfalls. Keeps them from making crazy decisions, and it motivates people to keep the goals. And so, as far as budgeting goes in that process, it starts with collecting data. Then you have to plan out how you intend to use that data to make a decision, and then from there you create a budget. And so a couple of different ways of how budgets go. You can have a line item budget, which is, these are all under operational budgets. So a line item budget basically lays out line by line what each program is spending their money on. So you have it for equipment, for gear, for travel. Then you have a program budget. And a program budget is based on each particular program. Okay, and they're essentially responsible for what they do with it. Okay, and they have to keep up with that. You have a performance budget, which is linked to how you do. So you get money for how you perform. And then you have a zero-based budget, which is very, very common in high schools, where basically the money you spend, you have to raise. And then you have a whole separate category of capital budgets. And these are a whole different thing. These are deals where basically we're trying to raise money for big initiatives, to build an indoor practice facility, to build a new field. Reinhardt's getting ready to start a capital campaign pretty soon. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I look forward to seeing your comments.